The morning of July 15, 2025, dawned clear over the disputed waters 62 nautical miles northeast of La Guaira, Venezuela. At 0730 hours local time, the United States Coast Guard cutter Hamilton, a Legend-class national security cutter, maintained course 090 degrees at 12 knots through international waters. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge wing, her weathered hands gripping the rail as she watched the horizon through binoculars. The Hamilton's advanced SPS-73 radar system painted a clear picture of the surrounding maritime traffic on the main display. Petty Officer 3rd Class Rodriguez monitored the communications console, headset pressed tight against his ear as he tracked multiple radio frequencies. "Bridge, CIC," crackled the intercom from the Combat Information Center below. "Surface contact, bearing 045 degrees, range 28,000 yards, and closing." Lieutenant Commander James Park, the executive officer, immediately moved to the radar repeater display. The green blip pulsed steadily against the dark screen, its trajectory intercept vector clearly marked in amber. "Classification unknown, estimated speed 32 knots, continued the CIC watch officer. Captain Mitchell lowered her binoculars and stepped back into the bridge house. "Very well, maintain course and speed," she ordered, her voice calm but alert. "Communications, attempt to raise the contact on channel 16. Rodriguez adjusted his headset and keyed the microphone. "Unknown vessel bearing 045 from my position. This is United States Coast Guard cutter Hamilton. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." Static filled the bridge speakers for several long seconds. The approaching vessel continued its aggressive closing maneuver, now 24,000 yards away. Through the bridge windows, a dark speck became visible on the horizon, growing larger with each passing minute. "Still no response, Captain," Rodriguez reported, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Captain Mitchell studied the tactical display, noting the contact's unwavering course toward their position. "Exo, bring the ship to general quarters," she commanded. The familiar bong 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 of the general alarm echoed throughout the Hamilton's steel corridors. "General quarters! General quarters! All hands man your battle stations," boomed over the ship's announcing system. Sailors scrambled through passageways, their feet pounding against metal decking as they rushed to assigned positions. In the forward gun mount, Gunner's Mate 1st Class Thompson quickly powered up the Hamilton's 57mm Bofors cannon. The weapon system's electro-optical director swiveled smoothly as it acquired the approaching target. "Gun mount manned and ready," Thompson reported over the sound-powered telephone circuit. Below decks, the engineering watch frantically checked fuel flows and propulsion systems. "Engine room answers all bells," came the report from Chief Petty Officer Martinez in the machinery spaces. On the bridge, tensions mounted as the unknown vessel closed to 18,000 yards. Captain Mitchell raised her binoculars again, now able to make out the sleek profile of a fast attack craft. "That's a Venezuelan Larsen-class missile boat," identified Lieutenant Parker, the intelligence officer. "Probably the ARV Mariscal Sucre, based on the hull configuration." The Venezuelan vessel measured approximately 44 meters in length, with a distinctive angular superstructure. Its twin diesel engines could propel the craft to speeds exceeding 40 knots in calm seas. Most concerning were the 4 Exocet MM-40 anti-ship missiles mounted amidships in sealed launch canisters. "Range now 16,000 yards and still closing," reported the CIC. "Contact is maintaining collision course." Captain Mitchell felt her pulse quicken as she considered her limited options. The Hamilton, at 418 feet long and displacing 4,300 tons, dwarfed the approaching Venezuelan boat. However, the missile boat's speed and firepower advantage could not be ignored in these confined waters. "Communications, try the Venezuelan Navy emergency frequency," Mitchell ordered. Rodriguez quickly retuned his radio equipment to the designated international channel. "Venezuelan naval vessel. This is United States Coast Guard cutter Hamilton conducting lawful operations in international waters. Request you alter course to avoid close encounter." The response came immediately, crackling with static and heavily accented English. "United States vessel, you are approaching Venezuelan territorial waters without authorization." Alter your course immediately or face consequences. Captain Mitchell grabbed the microphone from Rodriguez's hand. Venezuelan vessel, negative. We are operating in international waters per international maritime law. We will not alter course. The missile boat had closed to 12,000 yards, its wake now visible as twin white plumes behind the gray hull. Through high-powered binoculars, Captain Mitchell could see sailors moving on the Venezuelan vessel's deck. CIC reports the contact has activated fire control radar, announced Lieutenant Commander Park grimly. The Hamilton's electronic warfare systems detected the characteristic pulse patterns of a Castor II fire control radar. This radar guided the Exocet missiles during their terminal attack phase against surface targets. All stations, this is the captain, Mitchell announced over the ship's general announcing system. We have a potentially hostile contact with active fire control radar. Remain alert and ready. In the Combat Information Center, electronic warfare technician Second Class Adams monitored his console intently. The green waterfall display showed multiple radar emissions from the approaching Venezuelan boat. Bridge EW, Adams reported over the intercom. Contact has also activated surface search radar and communications intercept equipment. Captain Mitchell realized the situation had escalated beyond a simple territorial dispute. The Venezuelan crew was clearly preparing for potential combat operations. XO, man the close-in weapons system, she ordered. Lieutenant Commander Park immediately contacted the CIWS operator via sound-powered telephone. The Phalanx close-in weapons system represented the Hamilton's last line of defense against incoming missiles. Its 20mm Gatling gun could fire 4,500 rounds per minute in a desperate attempt to intercept threats. CIWS manned and in standby mode, came the report from gunner's mate Second Class Williams. The Venezuelan missile boat continued its aggressive approach, now 8,000 yards away. At this range, an Exocet missile would require less than 2 minutes to reach the Hamilton. Captain Mitchell's hands trembled slightly as she raised her binoculars once more. She could clearly see armed sailors on the Venezuelan boat's deck, some manning what appeared to be heavy machine guns. The vessel flew the Venezuelan naval ensign prominently from its stern, leaving no doubt about its nationality. Captain, recommend we come left to course 060, suggested Lieutenant Commander Park. That would open the range and provide more maneuvering room. Mitchell considered the tactical situation carefully. Turning away might be interpreted as weakness, potentially emboldening the Venezuelan commander. However, maintaining course risked a collision or worse confrontation in these politically sensitive waters. Negative, maintain current course, she decided. We have every right to be here. The radio crackled again with the Venezuelan commander's voice, now noticeably more agitated. American vessel, you have 30 seconds to alter course, or we will take defensive action. This is your final warning. Captain Mitchell grabbed the microphone, her voice steady despite the mounting pressure. Venezuelan vessel, we are conducting lawful transit through international waters. Any hostile action will be met with appropriate response. The missile boat had closed to 6,000 yards, its angular bow cutting through the gentle Caribbean swells. Black smoke poured from its diesel exhausts as the engine strained at high power settings. Bridge, lookout reports, muzzle flashes from the contact, announced Seaman Johnson from his position on the flying bridge. The distinctive crack of automatic weapons fire echoed across the water seconds later. Captain Mitchell watched in disbelief as tracer rounds arced high over the Hamilton superstructure. The Venezuelan gunners were deliberately firing warning shots well clear of the American vessel. All hands take cover, she shouted over the announcing system. Warning shots being fired. The Hamilton's crew pressed themselves against bulkheads and sought protection behind equipment. In the engine room, Chief Martinez ordered his watchstanders away from exposed positions near fuel lines. This is no drill, people, he barked. Stay low and stay alert. On the bridge, Captain Mitchell ducked behind the chart table as more tracer rounds whistled overhead. The Venezuelan gunners were using their twin 14.5mm heavy machine guns mounted on the boat's bow. Each burst of fire sent dozens of armor-piercing rounds screaming through the air above the Hamilton. "Return fire! Return fire!" shouted Lieutenant Commander Park instinctively. "Negative," Captain Mitchell countermanded immediately. "Do not return fire unless we take direct hits." The Hamilton's 57mm gun remained trained on the Venezuelan boat, but held its fire. Gunner's mate Thompson kept his finger near the firing switch, sweat dripping onto his control console. "Range 4,000 yards and still closing," reported the CIC. The missile boat had reduced speed slightly, but maintained its threatening course toward the American cutter. Captain Mitchell could now see individual sailors on the Venezuelan vessel's deck without binoculars. Their faces were grim and determined as they prepared their weapons for potential combat. "Captain, we need to do something," urged Lieutenant Commander Park. "They're getting too close for comfort." Mitchell studied the tactical display, weighing her options carefully. Opening fire would likely trigger a full engagement that could escalate beyond anyone's control. However, allowing the Venezuelan boat to close further risked the safety of her crew. "All engines ahead full," she ordered. "Come left to course 060 degrees." The Hamilton's twin diesel engines roared to life as Chief Martinez pushed the throttles forward. The massive cutter began accelerating through the swells, its wake broadening behind the transom. At the same time, the ship's rudder bit into the water, causing the bow to swing slowly to port. The Venezuelan commander apparently interpreted this maneuver as an escalation. "American vessel, stop your engines immediately," came the angry radio transmission. "You are attempting to ram our boat." Captain Mitchell keyed the microphone quickly. "Negative. We are taking evasive action to avoid collision. Recommend you do the same." The missile boat responded by increasing speed and altering course to intercept the Hamilton's new heading. Its twin screws churned the Caribbean waters into foam as the diesels screamed at maximum power. "Contact speed now 40 knots, reported the CIC. "Time to intercept 3 minutes at current courses and speeds." The range had closed to 3,500 yards, bringing both vessels well within effective weapons range. Captain Mitchell realized she was running out of time and options. The Venezuelan commander seemed determined to force a confrontation, regardless of international law. "Bridge, CIC, detecting missile guidance radar lock-on," announced the electronic warfare operator. The dreaded Castor fire control radar had locked onto the Hamilton's hull, providing targeting data for the Exocet missiles. "All hands, missile lock-on, missile lock-on," Captain Mitchell announced over the general announcing system. "Prepare for possible incoming missiles." In the Combat Information Center, sailors frantically activated the ship's electronic countermeasures systems. Chaff dispensers loaded with aluminum foil strips prepared to deploy clouds of radar-reflecting material. The ship's electronic jammers began transmitting on frequencies designed to disrupt incoming missile guidance systems. "Captain, recommend we launch chaff now," suggested Lieutenant Parker. "Give us some radar cover." Mitchell hesitated, knowing that deploying countermeasures would be seen as a hostile act. However, the Venezuelan missile lock-on had already crossed that threshold. Deploy chaff," she ordered. 4 rocket-propelled canisters burst from the Hamilton's launchers, creating silvery clouds in the air. The reflective chaff began drifting slowly downwind, creating false targets on radar screens. The Venezuelan missile boat immediately responded to this perceived escalation. "American vessel, you have deployed military countermeasures," came the angry radio transmission. "This is an act of aggression." Captain Mitchell grabbed the microphone desperately. "Venezuelan vessel, we are defending against your missile lock-on. Break lock immediately." The missile boat had closed to 3,000 yards, its weapons trained directly on the Hamilton. At this range, even small-caliber gunfire could penetrate the cutter's aluminum superstructure. "Bridge, radar contact bearing 090, range 15 miles, high speed," reported the CIC suddenly. A new player had entered the tactical picture, approaching rapidly from the east. "Looks like a fast patrol boat, Venezuelan configuration." Captain Mitchell felt her heart sink as she realized reinforcements were arriving. The situation had spiraled completely out of control in less than 30 minutes. "Communications, send flash message to Fleet Forces Command," she ordered. Report contact with hostile Venezuelan naval units. Request immediate assistance. Rodriguez's fingers flew over his encryption equipment as he prepared the emergency transmission. The Hamilton satellite communication system would relay the message to Norfolk within seconds. Message transmitted, Captain, he reported. Acknowledgement received. The original Venezuelan missile boat had closed to 2,500 yards, its wake now washing against the Hamilton's hull. Through her binoculars, Captain Mitchell could see the boat commander standing on his bridge wing. He appeared young, perhaps in his early 30s, with the determined expression of someone following orders. Venezuelan boat, this is Captain Mitchell, United States Coast Guard, she transmitted directly. I am requesting immediate communication with your commanding officer. The response came after a tense 15-second delay. Captain, this is Commander Carlos Mendoza, Venezuelan Navy. You are in violation of our territorial waters. I am authorized to use all necessary force to remove you. Captain Mitchell felt a chill run down her spine at the formal tone. This was no longer a simple misunderstanding between professional mariners. Commander Mendoza, we are operating in international waters under international maritime law. I strongly urge you to reconsider your position. The Venezuelan commander's response was immediate and uncompromising. Captain Mitchell, you have 5 minutes to alter course away from our territorial waters. After that time, I will consider you a hostile vessel. The missile boat began circling the Hamilton at high speed, creating a dangerous wake in the confined waters. Captain Mitchell watched helplessly as the Venezuelan vessel maneuvered aggressively around her much larger ship. The Hamilton's superior size meant nothing in this tactical situation. Bridge, sonar contact, submerged vessel bearing 180, range 8,000 yards, reported the ASW team. A submarine had been detected approaching from the south, adding another dangerous element to the encounter. Captain Mitchell realized she was potentially surrounded by hostile forces in international waters. The political implications of this confrontation could spark a major international incident. All stations, possible submarine contact to the south, she announced. Maintain heightened awareness. The Venezuelan missile boat completed its threatening circle and took position directly ahead of the Hamilton. Commander Mendoza's vessel now blocked the American cutter's path through the international shipping lane. Time remaining, 4 minutes, came the ominous radio transmission. Captain Mitchell looked around her bridge at the tense faces of her crew. These young sailors had signed up to serve their country, not to start a war in the Caribbean. "Exo, what's our fuel status for high-speed operations?" she asked quietly. Lieutenant Commander Park quickly consulted his charts. "Approximately 18 hours at flank speed, Captain. Enough to reach Puerto Rico if necessary." The second Venezuelan patrol boat had closed to 8 miles and was approaching rapidly from the northeast. Captain Mitchell realized she would soon be outnumbered and outgunned in these disputed waters. "Communications. Any response from fleet forces?" she inquired. Rodriguez shook his head grimly. "Negative, Captain, but the duty officer acknowledged receipt and classified the message as flash override. Help would be coming, but probably not in time to affect the immediate situation." Captain Mitchell had to make a decision that could determine the fate of her ship and crew. The Venezuelan commander's 5-minute ultimatum was ticking down with mechanical precision. 3 minutes remaining, crackled over the radio. The missile boat maintained its blocking position, weapons trained on the Hamilton's bridge. Captain Mitchell could see Venezuelan sailors manning additional machine guns on the boat's stern. The political ramifications of this encounter would reverberate through Washington and Caracas for months. Border disputes in the Caribbean had always been sensitive, but this represented a dangerous new escalation. "Captain, recommend we comply with their demands," suggested Lieutenant Commander Park quietly. "We can always return with proper escort." Mitchell considered her executive officer's pragmatic advice carefully. Backing down would avoid bloodshed, but might encourage future Venezuelan aggression. Standing firm risked triggering the first naval combat between U.S. and Venezuelan forces. 2 minutes remaining, came Commander Mendoza's voice. The tension on the Hamilton's bridge had become almost unbearable. Several sailors were visibly sweating despite the air conditioning. Captain Mitchell made her decision. "All engines stop," she ordered. "We're going to wait this out and see what develops." The Hamilton's engines wound down to idle, leaving the ship dead in the water. This passive response neither complied with nor defied the Venezuelan ultimatum. "1 minute remaining," transmitted Commander Mendoza. The missile boat's engines revved ominously as it prepared for whatever action its commander deemed necessary. Captain Mitchell held her breath as the final seconds ticked away. The Caribbean sun climbed higher in the cloudless sky, bearing witness to a confrontation that would reshape regional naval operations. At exactly 0847 hours local time, Commander Mendoza's voice crackled over the radio one final time. "Captain Mitchell, you have chosen to remain in our territorial waters despite repeated warnings. I am now taking action to defend Venezuelan sovereignty." The missile boat's guns swiveled toward the Hamilton's waterline as the crew prepared to fire. The missile boat's twin 14.5mm machine guns erupted in synchronized bursts of orange flame. Heavy rounds slammed into the water just 50 yards short of the Hamilton's bow, sending towering geysers into the morning air. "Taking fire! Taking fire!" shouted the bridge lookout as spray from the impacts drenched the forward deck. Captain Mitchell felt the deck plates vibrate beneath her feet from the nearby explosions. "All hands, brace for impact," she commanded over the announcing system. Commander Mendoza's next burst walked the rounds closer, impacting just 20 yards from the Hamilton's starboard side. The Venezuelan gunners were demonstrating precise fire control, deliberately missing by decreasing margins. "Captain, we have to respond," urged Lieutenant Commander Park desperately. "They're going to hit us on the next salvo." Mitchell grabbed the radio microphone with shaking hands. "Commander Mendoza, cease fire immediately. You are firing on a vessel in international waters." The response came between machine gun bursts. "Captain Mitchell, alter course now, or the next rounds find their target." At that critical moment, the Hamilton's radar operator made a crucial discovery. "Bridge, CIC, that submarine contact is surfacing, bearing 190, range 6,000 yards. Through the bridge windows, Captain Mitchell could see a dark shape breaking the surface to the south. The submarine's conning tower emerged slowly, water cascading from its sides in white sheets. "Venezuelan submarine, Scorpion class," identified Lieutenant Parker grimly. The diesel-electric submarine displaced approximately 2,000 tons and carried modern torpedoes and anti-ship missiles. Commander Mendoza apparently received new orders via encrypted communications from the submarine. "Captain Mitchell, you now have 30 seconds to begin turning away," he transmitted. "My submarine commander is less patient than I am." The Hamilton was now trapped between the missile boat ahead and the submarine behind. Captain Mitchell realized that any aggressive movement could trigger a coordinated attack from both vessels. "Helm, come right to course 120 degrees, slow ahead," she ordered reluctantly. The Hamilton's bow began swinging slowly to starboard, away from the disputed waters. This tactical retreat would allow both sides to de-escalate without losing face completely. "Venezuelan vessels, we are altering course as requested," Mitchell transmitted. "Request safe passage through international waters." Commander Mendoza's missile boat maintained its aggressive posture, but ceased firing. "Acknowledged, American vessel. Maintain your new course until clear of our operational area." The submarine remained on the surface, its crew visible on the conning tower as they monitored the American withdrawal. Captain Mitchell watched the tactical display as the range between vessels gradually increased. At 0915 hours, the Hamilton had opened the distance to 8,000 yards from the nearest Venezuelan unit. "Captain, flash message from Fleet Forces Command," reported Rodriguez. "USS Billings and USS Milwaukee are en route, ETA 6 hours. 2 Independence-class littoral combat ships were racing south from Puerto Rico with orders to investigate. The confrontation had already triggered a significant U.S. Navy response that would arrive too late. Communications, prepare detailed incident report for immediate transmission," ordered Captain Mitchell. The political fallout from this encounter would reach the highest levels of both governments within hours. In Caracas, Venezuelan Defense Minister Admiral Ramirez would claim a successful defense of territorial sovereignty. In Washington, Pentagon officials would condemn the unprovoked attack on a U.S. Coast Guard vessel in international waters. The disputed coordinates 62 nautical miles northeast of La Guaira would become a new flashpoint in Caribbean tensions. Both Venezuelan patrol boats maintained surveillance of the Hamilton until it cleared their declared exclusion zone. The submarine submerged again at 0930 hours, disappearing beneath the blue Caribbean waters. Captain Mitchell finally allowed herself to breathe normally as the Venezuelan vessels faded from radar contact. Her crew had performed admirably under extreme pressure, maintaining discipline despite the terrifying circumstances. The Hamilton continued eastward toward Puerto Rico, its crew still at general quarters pending further orders. This incident would reshape U.S. Coast Guard operations throughout the Caribbean for years to come. Venezuelan President Maduro would address the nation that evening, praising his Navy's bold defense of maritime borders. The international community would call for restraint from both sides while secretly choosing positions. Captain Mitchell knew that her decision to withdraw had probably prevented a larger conflict. However, the precedent set by Venezuelan aggression in international waters remained deeply troubling. As the Hamilton steamed toward safety, both sides prepared for the next inevitable encounter in these disputed seas. The Caribbean had become a more dangerous place, where miscalculation could spark unintended warfare between hemispheric neighbors.